Okay, we are live, at least according to what YouTube says. Hello, everyone. This is episode 44 of the Lost and Found Bin. I'm your host, I'm your co-host, SMQ, and my other co-host is.
Chick.
All right. Okay. I'm just a little excited. Buster, 1978. I had a conversation with him the other day, a private conversation. And Chick, I was thinking we all three of us have to powwow on this. And you have access to the document now, and so do I. It's a Department of Defense document that was released in 2003, and it was generated in the 9th of June 1983, and it's about this thing, the gateway process. For a lot of people, the particular process, this particular memo, it's not new news to them. It's new to me. I would imagine it's new to Chick. But it's an amazing document. I've gotten about halfway through it. I've underlined certain portions of the document. And there's one piece of it I'd like to go over. That earlier look, there's one piece I want to go over because it springs off into a lot of different areas. So I'm going to read just a little piece of this so we can all get into this. So it's on page 8. And then what I'm going to end up doing with this document is ingesting it very, very well. And I'll end up making a series of videos. And if Buster is cool with it, I'd like to talk with him on the air, maybe do a roundtable with Chick once we all understand it and ingest it, because I think this could potentially be a watershed document in understanding the Mandela effect, because ultimately when we talk Mandela effect, what we're ultimately talking about is understanding the nature of our existence and the nature of us being inside of this existence. And understanding that nature of existence and our reason for being here inside of that existence probably comes before understanding the Mandela effect itself. And though this document doesn't, as so far as I've been reading it, doesn't exactly directly pertain to the Mandela effect, what it does pertain to is a lot of things, the way the human mind reacts to the universe and how the universe reacts to the human mind. So, what I'm going to read is a real quick blurb from this section called the Consciousness Matrix. And it says the universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest, some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. According to theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London, the human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we all call consciousness. Kaboom. So, first impressions, Chick, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking this is almost kind of like what we said before, that there's a mystical side to high science, or I'm not even sure we would call this science, as this is DoD, so this is defense as well as science. When you get to the higher levels of it, they actually tend to talk about all the things that the lower level people say isn't real, and I think we're back to that again. I'm looking at this document right now, and it does resonate with me a lot. Kind of the things that they're talking about here, and I'm not sure how many people may have already read this document or not, but it's like brand new to me. They're talking about the different range of hertz, and range of vibrational. What would you even say? The vibrational system, like to what degree it resonates, and to what degree it actually intersects with other parts of the world. And here on page 8, under section 9, brain stimulation, it is saying that the movement of our bodies will travel around the world in about 1/7 of a second through the electromagnetic field in which we're embedded. Such a long wavelength knows no obstacles. Its strength does not attenuate much over large distances. Naturally, it will go through just about anything: metal, concrete, water, and fields making up our bodies. This is the ideal medium for conveying a telepathic signal. And this is in a DoD document. This is not in some wild, woo-woo spiritualist document. So it's very much an eye-opener for me that they are discussing this in a factual kind of way.
And it's a factual, matter-of-fact kind of way in which they talk about it says here, "Solid matter, in the strict construction of the term, simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids which orbit at extraordinarily high speeds." And then it says too that the so-called states of matter are actually variances in the states of energy, and the human consciousness is a function of the interaction of energy in two opposite states, motion versus rest, and a matter described in the following paragraph. Then it got into that the hologram, and what was so haunting about this for that is, if you remember, we were talking about morphic resonance and that article that I had sent out, and I think I still have it attached to this particular to this episode. I have it in the description, but I also send it out to the link of the field and how it's kind of serendipitous that we have that particular article from the last time that we spoke. It says, and I'm going to read. Memory need not be stored in material traces inside the brain, which are more like TV receivers than video recorders, turning into influences from the past. Now, what I'm about to piece together here shook me to my core. It says here, and biological inheritance need not at all be coded in the genes or an epigenetic modification of the genes. Much of it depends on morphic resonance from previous members of the species. And here it comes, guys. Thus, each individual inherits a collective memory from past members of the species. Now, now you may go, okay, that's something we've gone over before. So what? Well, if you guys remember, whenever if you go to section 12, page
Yeah,
7, okay, and it goes, and if you remember, when I generally started my 2012 series, and I promise you, I did not read this document. Please believe me. It took Buster 1978 to give this to me. Okay, this is all of his research and all of his hard work and blood and sweat. He just simply handed this document to me. But in I think it's the third sentence there. It says, reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which there are pebbles that are dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous entry of the three pebbles radiates outwards towards the rim of the bowl. Now, it goes on to talk about how you preserve a hologram by doing that. But whenever I talk about in my We Died in 2012 series, what I was talking about was a pebble hitting a calm body of water, and as existence is shown as it ripples out. And during that ripple in how it begins to dissipate. And you guys can go back to 2017 when I did my We Died in 2012 series. It's in a playlist. I had no idea that they had made basically the same kind of reference. So normally this would be some woo-woo stuff, but if you actually go into the morphic resonance article, they talk about the collective memory of our species, the human species, and that each individual inherits from that collective memory. Could it be the author of this document and myself? We both are pulling down from what I normally would have called the muse, the thing of fiction that I talk about with like Parsons and things like that, that place of collective memory. This too, it's an odd reference for them to make. It's an odd reference for me to get into contact with 2 years, almost to the month after I first made that reference of a rock hitting a calm body of water and it ripples out. It was, it is so affirming that we are not only on the right track, I think we are starting to figure this thing out.
I'm afraid in case they've already figured this thing out. This is a very in-depth paper right here. I'm just looking at their little. They've got drawings of the human consciousness energy grid. they are saying the left hemisphere of the brain acts like the mind's computer software to reduce input from the right hemisphere, and then the right hemisphere reduces dimensions holographic image to two-dimensional, so that it's basically saying that we think we see in three-dimensional, but that we see more like two-dimensional.
Well, they're open in here about saying audible and perhaps subliminal suggestions by Bob Monroe accompany the various brainwave frequencies, which are sometimes rolled in together with other sounds such as sea surf to match the sound frequencies where desirable. All these people who say Hollywood do subliminal messaging and all these other things, this document says yes, yes, absolutely. It's all subliminal, and it talks about the passivity of, I don't know if it's the left or right side of the brain versus, and it works in it's one side of the here it goes, the right side of the human brain, right, it's the right side. It says here hypnosis. uh It says here, the direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers in lower cerebral or emotional portions associated with pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain follows successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is self-cognitive, verbal, and linear reasoning component of the mind. It fulfills functions and screening and all that. So basically, the left hemisphere can be distracted either through boredom or through reduction to a sporific semi-sleep state. And once that's done, what you can do is basically insert here subliminal messaging, depending on the cycles of hertz, inside of something like C sounds or waves or whatever it may be. And then what you do is you insert that stimuli that the other side of, or I don't know, it's left or right side. It's like I said, I've got to get more into it, people, and ingest it so I can speak about it. But I'm just so excited to be even holding this in my hands. But it talks about all of those things that other channels have talked about. This absolutely confirms those things, that they know that they can put subliminal things into something like sound or music or film and use objects that will be interpreted by your subconscious, and then you will be subconsciously directed to do things. It's so powerful. And that's not even really the hardcore stuff yet. That's the child's play. That's barely on page 4 or 5. I mean, we're talking about the holographic, universe, and the holographic brain functioning within that holographic universe. I haven't even gotten to the actual what is the gateway process. I haven't even gotten to that part yet, chick.
I'm just looking at the diagrams, looking at the paper, and I'm just thinking about conversations that we've had before about. I really think this is how the Orion arm works. When we see people get their downloads, the download
Yeah.
stairs, like they suddenly get information about something that they didn't know. And that's generally when you point out a Mandela effect and they say the old answer and then they get a download and they get the new answer. They're okay. So the people here they're kind of, what would the right word be? Like kind of porous, and the information is being kind of directed towards them. It's difficult to say it in a sound kind of language or a water kind of language. It's somewhere between the two, but they're basically taking in the information. They don't. It's not that they have their own completely separate essence with their own completely separate memories. It does seem to be that there is a collective, so to speak, here, and that they're all kind of either being given the same ideas or taking the same ideas. That's why it's so weird here. I would say we're definitely not from this, and there's different levels of artistic, like you just said there about the muse and taking things down. There's always been artists, and there's always been artistic inspiration that can be drawn down from, I believe, a higher place. So I'm not disputing that whatsoever. But I'm just wondering if this helps to explain the Orion arm more for people like us that are not from here, that think all of this looks really, wild.
Right. But and this also too explains a bit well, first off, Buster 1978 says the gateway processes the left and right hemisphere of the brain. Well, he didn't say that, but I injected that. Being in perfect sync in frequency and amplitude. Now, the reason why that's important, I know early on in the document, and I'm not going to talk about later on in the document because I've just gotten to this. It was talking about through means of almost like Kundalini level. They call it Kundalini psychosis or transcendence. There's a versioning where you can do a kind of transcendence to lower the heart rate and to change the brain waves on in your body, and you can here it is. It says here the change in resonance results from elimination of what the medical profession calls the bifurcation echo, so that the sound of the heartbeat can move synchronously up and down the circulatory system in harmonious resonance approximately 7 times a second. Bentoff describes the role played by the bifurcation echo as follows, quote, when the left ventricle of the heart ejects blood, the aorta, being elastic, balloons out just beyond the valve and causes a pressure pulse to travel down along the aorta. When the pressure pulse releases the bifurcation in the lower abdomen, which is where the aorta forks into to go up into the legs, part of the pressure pulse rebound starts to travel up the aorta. If in the meantime the heart ejects more blood, a new pressure pulse is traveling down. These two pressure points will eventually collide somewhere along the aorta and produce an inheritance pattern, an interference pattern. By placing the body in a sleep-like state, the gateway tapes achieve the same goal as meditation, that it places the body in such a profoundly relaxed state that the bifurcation echo slowly fades away as the heart lessens the force and frequency with which it pushes blood into the aorta. I'm sorry, there's one part about this that it talks about hertz and ranges, and it goes all into this, and it actually talks about the body being able to actually cure itself by changing its own frequency, even to the point of curing cancer, by using um, these sort of exercises, by using Kundalini like and other kinds of exercises. And they talk about Kundalini psychosis, and they talk about transcendental um, frequencies and meditative techniques such as that. And it's just mind blowing here.
It is definitely, and I'm trying to find what page it is so that I can show you quickly, SMQ. But there is, let me see, it's just after section 25. There is a page here in the document that has a few pictures, because that's one of the quickest things to get your information from, when it comes to trying to understand kind of nonverbal concepts. And what I'm seeing here is what they call it, the universal nucleus hologram.
Right.
And it is not only like a projection of a cell with a center nucleus, but it is also, it appears to be a holographic, or should we say like a fractal of basically the universe is looking like a brain right here. We have a
Yeah.
left to right
Yeah.
hemisphere. We have the center, the not just membrane, but it appears to be the white hole, black hole nucleus, appears to also be in the spot where the pineal would be. This is some very bizarre stuff right here. As we know, white holes is something that we discussed early in the lost and found bin. And that's how we knew we were on the other side of reality, is because on the old side of reality, only black holes existed, and nobody
Absolutely.
knew where a black hole led to. And then when we got here to the Orion Arm and everything was getting a bit weird, we saw that there was such thing as white holes, and we pulled up the articles. We talked about it at the time. That was a very early episode. I can't remember exactly which one, but anyways, white holes are basically the other side of a black hole, where all of the light and information and everything else is coming out of. And the fact that there is kind of white holes within black holes, uh, and everything being shown here in the diagram, not only do they know about it, but it seems to affect every way in which this is working. As in, I believe if we didn't have the white hole component, it couldn't be a perfectly projected hologram as it is here, or a
Right.
or a fractal size bigger every time, like going from a cell to a human brain to the universe to whatever's bigger than that. And that seems to be the building blocks as they've laid them out. It kind of, in a way, it answers a lot of questions. In another way, it kind of deepens the mystery of what is the Orion Arm. Okay, so this is a holographic place. This is a place where memories are not, genetically given down by your parents. This is where you can kind of suck your memories in from the atmosphere. And I know I'm laughing in shock, but I'm being deadly serious. This is what they're saying that reality is like here. So no wonder it's so crazy here. If different
Right.
people are sucking down different things, and they're very they're existing in a holographic consciousness state, which that in itself is the scaffolding of the reality around them in such a place. No wonder this entire place is so mismatched. It's a whole bunch of people kind of not even sure what they're remembering, hodgepodging together what they think they remember of the world.
Before we have a lot more people signing on here that are just getting on, what we're talking about is Buster 1978. He gave us, he dropped a bomb on us, so to speak, about this FOIA release. A good bomb. It's a wonderful thing for Emmys. It's called the Gateway Process. Everyone that's just watching now, and it was approved for release in 2003, in September of all things, September 10th, 2003. It was approved for release, and what it talks about is and I'm going to read it one more time for I know there's 77 watching and there was 40 when we started. So the universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is in itself one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Hologram of unbelievable complexity, according to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and Dan Boehm, a physicist at the University of London. The human mind is also a hologram, which attunes itself to the universal hologram by the medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we call consciousness. Also, too, we were noting the earlier references to morphic resonance, and inside of morphic resonance, it talks about the individual thus doesn't inherit just strictly from the genes or from the environment from which we grow. We also inherit, in like Chick says in Orion, we also inherit from the collective memory from past members of the species. And I noted for everybody that missed it that earlier in my We Died in 2012 series, I based it all off of the idea of a rock hitting a calm body of water, and then the water ripples out, and as it ripples out and dissipates, that is existence becoming more into a chaotic state as it ripples into nothingness. And then in this document, I note that almost word for word, this document also notes as an example of pebbles hitting a bowl of water and being able to understand the hologram as it ripples out. So if that's the case, we are this document, the author of this document and myself were indeed pulling down from this collective memory of the past species, of our members of our past species through the process of morphic resonance. And then that explains coincidences. That starts to explain things. Those of us, my ear isn't ringing right now. Is anybody's ears ringing? Because mine isn't. Is your ears ringing, chick?
Yeah, to a low level.
My, I barely feel anything, if anything at all. I I feel barely feel anything at all. It's usually at a 10, and right now it's at a almost nothing. Everybody out in the chat, how are you feeling? No ear ringing, I see. No ringing ears. Did we make a breakthrough? Have we low level 2? Yeah, it's usually okay. Angelia says hers are ringing. Little to nothing, low. Okay, no ringing at the moment. I don't know if we made a breakthrough. I don't know what we did, but the universe is holographic. So is our mind. There is a collective from which the morphic resonance that we use to pull it down from. This is also a Jungian concept, but I think what's important too is what you brought up about them sending consciousness up into the hemisphere or the atmosphere, the ionosphere, for it to move within seconds around the planet. Now, think about this. If you guys have ever, if the universe is holographic and if they were comfortable enough to release this, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed people in the corner of your eyes or something. You go to look and it's not there. This would explain people moving within this holographic universe and being there and being able to zip by right away. Have you ever experienced anything like that, Chick?
Yes, but I'm not sure if my experiences are kind of relevant to this because back in the Sagittarius army, even that was happening. So it was kind of a different thing, and it wasn't always like that quick. Like I would usually get a good description of what they looked like and what they were wearing and everything like that. So that's kind of going down the at least what I thought was the ghost path. Maybe it's nothing to do with ghosts. Maybe it's all holographic or parallel timelines or things like that. But usually the descriptions would match up with someone that used to be around, and maybe it's kind of a parallel thing where the person is still around, but we're just not on the same frequency bandwidth anymore. Of course, if it's all holographic, who knows how the different levels of this work? If it's
Right. And we,
holograms rather than frequency based.
right. And I've really only started to really dive into this. Like I glanced over it a couple days ago, but I mean really getting into this yesterday. And I've gotten, as far as like just oh gosh, and then here's this section, guys. This will blow your mind. Um, Um, uh, Continuing with the consciousness matrix, as energy passes through the various aspects of the universal hologram and is perceived by the static fields which comprise the human mind, the holographic images being conveyed are projected upon those electrostatic fields of the mind and are perceived or understood to the extent that the electrostatic field is operating at a frequency and amplitude that can harmonize and therefore read the energy carrier wave patterns passing through it. Changes in the frequencies and the amplitude of the electrostatic field, which comprises the human mind, determines the configuration and hence the character of the holographic energy matrix, which the mind projects to intercept meaning directly from the holographic transmissions of the universe. Now, here it comes, guys. Then, to make sense of what the holographic image is saying to it, the mind proceeds to compare the image just received with itself. And here's where I underline specifically, it does this by comparing the image received with that part of its own hologram, which constitutes, drumroll please, memory, by registering differences in geometric forms. Sigils, anyone? I said that, that's me. By geometric forms and in energy frequency, the consciousness perceives. And then it says, see the exhibit. And then it shows this picture of the human mind and the consciousness energy grid that goes through the mind. And it says, this is what blew my mind. Get ready, folks. As psychologist Keith Floyd puts it, quote, contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. Wow. Let that sit there for a minute. Just want you guys to just sit there and take that in for a second. Holy, I mean, this is a DoD document. This isn't some book from, and I don't mean to put it down like New Age because people call me that all the time because I do Eckhart Tolle and I do practice. I actively practice the power of now, and I do the exercises. So when I say New Age, I know it's a derogatory term that people use on me. So this isn't something out of that, something derogatory. This is the Department of Defense. This is a CIA document from CIA.gov. All right. This isn't some, what a lot of people, I wouldn't consider it, but a lot of people, some kook, new ager. And that's using the language that others use, not myself. This is hardcore. This is so hardcore.
It is. Right. How do you even kind of follow up that? I mean, I've had my suspicions for a long time that the spirit is a lot more important than the physical world. And maybe it's just that here in Orion the language is different. Maybe it's not so much um what would you even say? I mean, I don't want to say like the signal is more important than the hologram. I still want to believe that it's deeper than just a signal coming from somewhere distant. But it's definitely making me look at everything and think about everything. This is beyond kind of what I was expecting to find going through any documents like this. Buster did a great job.
Yeah, this is amazing work, and, I'm not even halfway through, and I haven't even gamed out, and that's why I wanna make kind of a series of videos. I'd like to do a roundtable. I'd like to get Buster more involved if he'd like. Um, Certainly you, Chick, and some of the other crew too involved, because this could be something that we can better understand our reality, and certainly already it makes the Mandela effect, I just feel it subconsciously. It makes more sense now that, if it is a hologram, then indeed it is much more. Buster had mentioned too that if you get deeper into the document, it talks about time and the nature of time, and it talks about. And I didn't want to give all that away right now. I don't want to give everything away until we can understand it better, because I don't want to just read it without any kind of presentation that you can offer up that makes sense. But it also talks about the nature of time. And indeed, there are suggestions from what I understood that the past itself has its own sort of autonomy, and a kind of autonomy that it seems that we're not familiar with, at least those of us that are Sagittarius orphans, that we're not as familiar with. Oh, and by the way, everyone, if you could give us some likes, please do so. It's free. It's easy. You just click that button, and it helps us out quite a bit. There are a lot of channels that do not like us, that do not like me, and what I need help with is to get likes. So therefore, we can counteract any kind of, and this channel has been demonetized, so I need to fight back and counteract the best way that I can. And likes are a very powerful tool that you'd be able to help me out with. Anyway, getting back to that, that was a shame. I would say it's a shameless plug, but I'm not plugging for money. I'm simply plugging to stay alive and not being removed from the platform. If you like this show and you want me to stay on this platform, please give me a like. Anyway, Chick, sorry. I had to say that for our survival.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah, it ain't easy out there, but I think that the viewers here they know how difficult it is and how the kind of crackdown that's coming on everything, and I can only imagine that's going to get worse the more we go into the really deep things. Even yesterday on Twitter, when we were discussing, I had found an alternative map, a parallel Earth map that
Yep.
it was a globe, and it just happened to go on my like flash of my television screen, and I was able to get some pictures of it with my phone. And when I went to post that on Twitter in a comment thread, the comment thread was hidden. So if you clicked on the original post, you couldn't see the picture of the parallel Earth, and you couldn't see the 12 or 14 following tweets of discussing it and discussing the implications of it, and also another picture comparing it to a different parallel Earth. So I mean, there is quite a bit of, and I don't know if it is like an automated um, censorship, or if it's literally that kind of a human interest is behind this. Because if this thing that we're dealing with here is kind of more like a hologram, is kind of more like a game, then the people that don't want to wake up yet are the people that are still in the middle of playing the game. And if you interrupt a gamer who's playing their game, they're going to be in a really bad mood. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it is to ensure the continuation of the game as it is going, that we're being kind of censored and kept quiet on things that would wake people up if they could sit down and stare at it for a while. Um, or if the game itself has kind of its own self-interests or its own motivations, as we've spoken about before, that the Mandela effect itself is conscious.
Right.
And sometimes I just get this strange feeling that there is kind of a non-human interest involved with the censorship of certain things. And I know that that might sound really wild, but I'm talking about not just cross-platform, but the way you're kind of censored in your own life when you speak with your own mouth, trying to wake people up, and then you come across the same thing in the digital world. To some degree, there's an interest in keeping people from waking up in any kind of hardcore way to what's really going on here.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, we have in our hands a Department of Defense document that is saying, and I quote, "Solid matter in the strict construction of the term simply does not exist. Rather, atomic structure is composed of oscillating energy grids surrounded by other oscillating energy grids, which orbits at extraordinarily high speeds." When you're talking at that level, and you're talking about the way in which you and I and everyone else perceives reality, that w and this thing is from 19, I think it was created 19, yeah, in, September 10th, 1983. So, this force of what you're talking about, they were at that level when you and I, some people didn't even exist. They were already there and they understood. Just like when we started to read about, it's the mind itself as a hologram that is just interacting with the hologram that is the universe. That's straight from the CIA. So if they're at that level, when you and I start talking about these kinds of things and understanding what we're talking about, and they start talking about things like grid patterns and things like that, you come dangerously close to almost feeling as if you are, when you think of grid patterns, when you look at a grid pattern and they talk about symbols, what does your mind think? I think of a prison because a grid is a series of bars going back and forth. And they mention that if you go further, they bring up the idea, which also shook me up, of a plate, because I had always talked about time being flat like a plate. They too bring up that, and that the hologram itself is erected, the holographic universe, and the way in which we react in this universe. According to the DoD and the CIA, it erects itself from that plate, and that's how we interact and exist. Now imagine if they decide to shut that down, or they have access to the collective conscious from which we pull our memories from, and they decide to tinker with something way different than I had envisioned whatsoever. But this also too, all of those things that people talk about, it being a prison or this world being a prison or whatever it may be, those very things are probably from that morphic resonance, subconscious, collective thing that we all pull down from, in addition to the Sagittarius idea that it was just from our environment and our genes. I mean, we're talking craziness here.
Yeah, and I just can't help but feel like a kind of disappointment. I mean that it's kind of a lot of like loose ends are making sense to me as I sit here and think about this, like how we had talked before about the past is kind of cheapened, and the the world itself seems to be not quite up to par with
Yeah.
what it was, and somehow we've ended up in a situation where we are living in a whole bunch of memories that I think the past doesn't have any richness because it's just the present, like re-remembered as the past and not even accurately. So I'm kind of like, no wonder it doesn't have that depth. No wonder it doesn't have um, what even words would you use to describe? Like you've been in the Sagittarius army, you know what it feels like when you're kind of faced with something from the ancient past, and just how
Yep.
amazing of an experience that is, and how that isn't even really here. Everything seems to be from the present, and everything
Well,
just seems to be kind of the same.
this all loops back to the beginning of this channel, which is most terrifying. We died in 2012. We have been moved from something, I believe Sagittarius was different than this hologram that we're in, but we are now in that hologram. I specifically mentioned in one of those episodes way back that, just like that calm body of water that I suggested, I think in Eve, I think it was Eve, my second video, that this references, this is spooky stuff. I referenced it, and that's referenced here. I said that we're being sort of almost uploaded like a server. And the forces that be, whatever this thing is, it is working on something to keep us around or conscious, or the consciousness perceiving itself, or something like that. And almost as if that's gone. And, using something as blunt as mass extinction event or anything like that sort of triggers people. So whatever event, whatever it is that happened, that is gone. And we are now, I believe it, we are somewhere else. Like you're saying, it's cheapened, and we've mentioned that. And the richness, even from our sun, that richness we could feel on almost every fiber of your body. You could feel the sun. It was so beautiful on your face and your hands, and if you had a day at the beach, it was just, and it's just gone. And it's a recreation we're in. And this document further actually emboldens me to go back almost to my old days, because it makes me feel as if I don't have to retreat, because I didn't have, again, I'm almost disappointed in myself that I rely on someone else's authority, and I hold that up to show, because I'm a bit of a fake. I say rely on your own authority, and all that, and I preach that, but I'm not practicing it, because I just realized, like you, I don't know how to feel about this document yet, because only now am I realizing that I'm deriving my own authority from this document, and that my original feelings were valid. And even though I may have put them in a provocative way, the substance of what I was saying has been validated by this document from my 2012 series. Even if it wasn't exactly the way I said it, the substance, I just feel it. And it's just, I'm a little disappointed in myself, but I'm also excited, and I'm absolutely terrified now. But I think the excitement is more, because I think I I I would rather know and be realistic about the reality around me than stick my head in the sand. I want to know. I need to know, and it's only fair. And the only way that maybe the world is in the shape that it's in, and there's so much sadness and people relying on medications or drugs, or meaningless activities and things like that. Maybe it's because we need to know these things here, things like in this document. Not only are we ready for it, we're craving it. We need to know the real reality of our existence, and we need to face it, and we need to put our grown-up pants on and understand things as they actually are. And we no longer have the I guess the luxury of what was handed to us before. Whatever happened to us, chick, whatever that was that day, whether it was 2008, whether it's happened multiple times, whatever it was when we knew it changed, this document, I think, helps begin that process of understanding exactly what it is we're in now, because it's not the same thing as what it was before. That's my belief, at least.
I would like to say one thing that I do believe, going through this document right here and thinking, applying it to the different things that we've talked over the course of the 44 episodes. I don't think that we are like the people that are in this document. I don't believe that we are empty bottles that are taking in, whatever kind of memory that may or may not have been tinkered with by the DoD and who knows and all this kind of stuff. If we were just us Mandela Effect people, I'm talking about, not the wider people at large, because I believe that is what's going on here in Orion with the larger population. But I'm just saying, for you Mandela affected people, you obviously are holding on to either an old system where you had your own autonomy, your own memories, your own separate feeling, and you weren't in this big collective, or there's something deeper and crazy at work here, because I know I've talked to Mandela affected people who have said that they had their original memories and then they started to have dual memories and then they were starting to get confused. It's almost like you're not being overwritten. You have a choice about which memories to go with and not to go with. You do remember the original Earth. You do remember the original Sun. You do remember so many things that are not real here, that cannot be copied here. And it's difficult for me to even find the words, because some of these experiences, some of these things are not something that was particularly verbal. Like I said, there were some things like you would go into a Renaissance era church, or you would see an ancient quarry, or you would, you'd stand there and look at the Grand Canyon. Like there's some things that are just beyond words, but silently you knew a flurry of information when faced with these things. You felt
Yeah.
how old these things were. You could see the distance, the depth, how high the sky was, the billions of stars up there. Like there's just so many things about the Sagittarius arm that you can't directly put into words. So then it's very difficult to describe it for an Orion person that's trying to figure out what you're talking about. But I think the thing that's getting me most kind of worked up here in my sentence and trying not to tangent away from that is we aren't empty vessels sucking in someone else's memories or a different collective's memories or something like that. I honestly think that either we're not supposed to be here or we have some very different reason for being here. Because if we were just supposed to be here and just supposed to settle into Orion, I think we would have been completely overwritten and we would just be forever in the present and we'd never even miss the past because we wouldn't know anything about it. Because if the collective isn't worried about the past, and that's what we're seeing with the Orion people, they have no interest in it whatsoever, then, why on earth would we be so separate and so different from all other life here in this place?
Absolutely. And in the chat, I noticed Buster, he was mentioning about the link to the document. I totally, Buster, if you, everybody, uh, give Buster, your attention to get the link to the document. Um, I didn't know if he was cool with it, but if he's cool with it, I mean, I too can put it out if you're cool with that, Buster. It's public anyway. I mean, if you dug hard enough, you can find it anyway. I can put it out right here, but certainly Buster deserves the attention and the credit. Buster 1978, also on Twitter, Buster 1978 here, on YouTube. Um, he totally yeah, share it. Okay, he said to share it. Hey, let me okay, cool. I'll share it, Buster. I wanted to I don't I value everyone who sends me things and whenever I was just looking at it and I'm going to CIA.gov right now and I am going to share it with everyone right now. He's cool with it. I didn't want to steal your thunder, dude. I just, whatever. Yep, okay, cool guys. I'll share it. Buster said it's cool. Like I said, I'm doing it with his permission. There it is, guys. There it is. And I'll actually put it in the description of I'll put it in the description of the video here. Also, anybody who is just watching and not taking part, or you're at work, you're driving around, whatever it may be. In the chat, I just pasted it in there. But don't worry, when you get home, what I'll go ahead and do, and I'll have it in the description, if not right afterwards, pretty close to afterwards, in there. And I just want to get through this and I want us all to talk about it. And I really want the conversation to now elevate to the next level because I feel like collectively we've broken through. I have no ringing or pressure in my head or ringing in my ears right now. I feel calm. I feel good. Um, I feel as if, I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to describe. I don't know. It's very strange. So, what are you feeling, Chick? What now that we have access to this document and I know it's been out forever and other people have read it, but we're a community that's like no other. We don't. I've said it before. If you're an ME, and I'll paste the document again because I'm seeing for the first time we've had 100 people watch. I'm going to paste the document in for everyone. 100 is watching now, which is the most we've ever had. Um, we're a community where this is all about the internal. I don't even really consider us a conspiracy. I think we're more a spiritual community. I don't think there's a conspiracy here per se. I think it's more of a I don't know, chick. It's just hard. We aren't like other communities, and I'm not putting anybody down, but they need a series of empirical evidences. They need gut instinct, and they need an incident that happened to other people. The incidents most of us brought us to the Mandela effect happened to us personally. Someone said, "What is the CIA link about?" Yes, the CIA link that I sent out to everybody is safe. It's a PDF. It's a proof for release document from 2003, and it's called the assessment of the gateway process. And I haven't read through it all the way, but it starts to explain the nature of existence, the nature of the mind, and how it coexists with the universe. The universe is, well, according to this, a hologram, and so is the human mind. Um, and quote in it, contrary to what we know is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. So, because of that, and because of the grid pattern, if you have a free floating consciousness, chick, whether it's, now I'm going to say this, and I may make a lot of people upset, but what if the consciousness, it truly is something um, that is mass, that is, collective, and then a piece of it is broken off and put into this sort of prison-like grid pattern, and then it's given this faulty sense of self, which we call the personality, and then it's installed into this holographic system, and then we see ourselves as something that is truly independent, and we strive for that independence, and perhaps that is what is working us deeper and deeper into this system. I myself has have always prided myself on my own independence, particularly in my thought and my being, but this is talking about something that is completely antithetical to everything that I believe in as a human being and as someone who considers himself an independent operator in this existence. What do you think? Because this thing is thinking more collective, it sounds like, and that the collective is already there. The collective is installed into the brain, but I haven't gotten all the way through this document, and maybe Buster can, set me straight, or I don't know. I don't know. There's just so much to take in right now, and this is a DoD document, people.
It's true. I mean, it is a DoD, so I mean, Carol California was saying there that there's nothing but lies from the government, and the government, every government is kind of full of lies. But I don't know if the Department of Defense would go into this so much if they didn't think there was anything in it. Now, that's not to say that we know at all what's 100% accurate or what's conjecture and what's theoretical and what's anything. But at least it's
Yes.
some kind of a clue or a path to go down here with the Mandela effect and with what's happening to us. Because it's not just, oh, some of the logos changed and, the store I used to like is in a different place now. I mean, we've seen this. It's all the people are different, the sky is different, the sun is different, everything I suppose that we can think of is different. The fact that we even realize it's different was something that, had held a lot of weight in my mind. And I certainly don't want to think that this is just some, war game scenario of, oh, what if part of the consciousness thought that it wasn't part of the collective and then it's fighting against itself, and, what would happen with that? I hope it's not some crazed
Well,
experiment along those lines. But anything, I mean, I have no idea. I just
well,
think that
what makes sense though, chick, is this. What about when we do our investigations? What about Flamenco? If it's a hologram, right? And this here's why I think that that this matters. One, it's a FOIA request, so the government didn't want to give it up. A FOIA request, how that happens is someone knows and they want it, and you got to take it to a court. And you got to fight to get it from the government, a FOIA request. You've got it. You can't, they're not going to just hand it over to you, you know? So I don't think they fight, but I think you have to request it. They're just not going to volunteer this crap to you. So that's first off what a FOIA request is. So this was an already existing document, and the government has to justify to a judge why this document needs to remain classified. So that means it would have to demonstrate to, so this judge must have known that there's technologies beyond this that are far more advanced than this to say, come on, fellas, we are well beyond this. Go ahead and release it. Whether you like it or not, do it. And this is from 1983, and it was released in 2003. So that's 20 years worth. And that sounds like something a judge would go, you had 20 years. I see the technology where it's at now versus where it was, release it. So that's one thing. That's first off. Second off, too, we've got to understand that that technology is spooky, and there I believe, yeah, that there are invisible just I guess people, but they're not really people. They're holographic consciousnesses that are, like it says, within 7 seconds surrounding the globe and can jump in and out of different places and is right there, then it's gone. I've seen it around me before that there's something there and then it's gone. Now, you know, 20 years on, I absolutely believe that they have that capability and that technology, something like that. I absolutely believe that. But also too, more important, I just lost my train of thought. I guess when we go to look into things like remember World War II and all those things, everything kept changing the more you looked into it. And it was like the hologram was dissolving, and I called it dissolving consensus, you know? Remember that chick? Every time we would look, there'd be new it would be unending, and it almost made it worse and worse and worse no matter what we looked into. And then if you think about the double slit experiment, they talk about reality reacts different when it's being observed. Well, that's because reality is the consciousness. The consciousness is the reality, like that quote. And then that also explains that if it's a hologram that has to be erected around the consciousness, here's the quote: contrary to what everyone knows is so, it may not be the brain that produces consciousness, but rather consciousness that creates the appearance of the brain. So if you, the individual, you are using, because if it's a hologram, then it's in a system and it requires resources like computer resources like memory and RAM, if I can use that analogy, if that works. And you are causing the system to have to construct something that you're paying attention to. And when you look away, it falls apart and disappears. And that's also what we talked about. And when you look in the past, it has to draw upon its own memory and throw something together for you, you know? Just slap it up there, you know? And I mean, it's insane, you know?
It is, but I'm still just, not willing to say that, this is reality, in total, because it wasn't for like most of my life. It's reality here.
Yeah.
But it's not
Yes.
reality far stretching to the ends of forever and it's the only reality. It's reality here in this little shoebox here in the Orion arm. And I'm
And
sorry,
we're
but
here.
that's kind of what this place is like. It's like a glorified shoebox with a white LED bulb shining into it. That it's with its low skies and it's oh my gosh, it's ever shrinking terrain. It's maybe people are so bad at geography they don't even remember where the countries are, so that's why the countries are disappearing mile by
Yeah.
mile, bit by bit. Oh my gosh. And I'm sorry to sound that way, but I'm just like, there's a lot of really lackadaisical people out here, and I don't want my reality to rely on their minds and their memories, because there won't be much left of anything. I'm afraid they're not very conscious of much. Oh Lord have mercy.
I know, I know. And I haven't paying any attention. I'm sorry to everybody in the chat. Hopefully everything is cool. I'm just looking around here and see what's going on. Somebody's talking about, oh, good chick. Oh, excellent. That's right. Yeah, I need more wrenches. And obviously I'm one. Chick's one. So, somebody talks about a voting video. What's going on with the voting video? What are we going to vote on? Talk to me. So, um, just going through and reading everybody's stuff. Hey Raleigh, how you doing? Brian, Salt Cedar, um, Lanessa. I mean, I see so many. It's so many of the just awesome people we see over in a Dark Slayer one. I mean, I don't want to leave anybody out, but it's just hey Dick Diamonds, what's up, man? Kyle, how you doing? It's just Lanessa, which I said. Mishka the cat, hello, Tara Lee. And I just want to thank everybody for coming. And the time's up. It felt like 30 seconds. The time is up. Hey, Dominique. The voting video is to ask if you remember Benny and June, the movie, as Benny and June or Benny and June. I remember it as Benny and I think it was June because the whole JOON because it was meant to be, like, peculiar. Because I remember Johnny Depp and his girlfriend, they were both meant to be just I think if I remember correctly, they were both very different people, and they beat to their own drum or something like that. It was long I haven't seen that movie in so long, though, so, that would be my first impression is Benny and June, like, JOON, I believe, but, um you don't have to, hold me to that, so, but that's cool you're making a video on that, that's sweet, that's awesome. Um,
There's
s it's 3 o'clock. We got a boogie, that's part of, like, our jam is that we do it in an hour, so there's no messing around, there's no fluff. I know people are really busy, it's the weekend. If you're a 9 to 5er, you don't got a lot of time, you gotta do all your stuff on the weekends, or if you're someone that's not a 9 to 5er, you may be at work right now, you can't be messing around, you're doing things, you're busy, I get it, I totally get it, so, any parting words? Because I think this is the beginning of a very long process for us, Chick, because I think we've broken through something here.
yes, I think that I'm going to be going back over a lot of old stuff and a lot of old theories, and look again at kind of the things that we were talking about maybe in the early episodes, and kind of mixing and matching and comparing with this document here. Not so much about relying on like the authority of the DoD or anything like that, but just their ideas and their research and how it's different to the things that we put together, and just trying to piece together exactly what is the situation here. It's
Right.
interesting that they mentioned the echoes, the cymatics. It's interesting that they
Yep.
mentioned all these different things that we talked about. Even the holographic principle of the sum of the parts is the sum of the whole, like that's in the document. And I'm sure you guys have heard me say that a lot, if not here, then on my own channel. Um, I don't know whether it's like 100th monkey or what the situation is, but there's so many things that we've talked about that are in this document. And I just want to see, like, if they've researched things a lot further, they had a whole bunch of experts working on things, how that can help us expand our theories and thoughts going forward.
And I specifically thanked some folks, but everybody, thank you. Yeah, Mishka, 12 Monkeys. I love that movie. Also, too, about time travel. And I wanted to get a bit more into this, talking about the Kundalini meditation. Um, and the Kundalini psychosis, because oftentimes, if you're not into that kind of Eastern esotericism, and you awaken the Kundalini, you don't know you've done it, it can be an experience from which most people don't come back from. But a lot of people purposely awaken their Kundalini. And that's, it's part of Eastern Hindu philosophy, and it's incredibly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But if you do know what you're doing, it's an incredibly powerful experience from my understanding. I don't mess with it because I don't know enough about it, and my mind was already bent with just a DoD document that's from 20 years ago, so, or 30 years ago. So all right, I'm done blathering. I'm sorry, Chick. I rambled on here for another 5 minutes. So, anything else? Oh, everybody, please, please, if you haven't, please give us a thumbs up. Keep this channel alive. Keep us on here, because remember, guys, if they are successful they've already demonetized the channel. If they get a strike or anything else on this channel, this show will not be able to happen. So, I'm seeing we are growing every single time. We used to remember, Chick, the days when we'd only have 15, 20 people watching.
Yes, and then we get like a bunch of people watching like afterwards, and now we have, you know a whole bunch of people like during the broadcast. So things are definitely different now than the early days.
Definitely, and today we broke 100. Did you see that?
I did. I saw that. That
It's
was
awesome.
that was very cool.
Oh, well, hold on. Jennifer Silves said, "My Kundalini awakening was surprising and scary, but I had support. I didn't realize that's the direction I was going when I did the work." Oh, wow. I Yeah, we'll have to talk sometime, Jennifer, because I've seen some videos, but I've never actually met someone that's gone through the Kundalini awakening. And I know it can happen, and I meditate and I do all kinds of different exercises, and I'm always afraid that I'll end up doing that by accident. So, Okay. Anyway,
Well,
guys.
the lack
Uh,
of randomness, though, just one thing just before we go, and I know we're really
yeah.
super
No.
late, but
No, it's cool.
the lack of randomness in this place here, in this holographic Orion arm, whatever it is, I have seen that there are people doing studies into like numerology and Chinese astrology and everything, and where that used to be very wishy-washy and who knows, it seems to line up very, very surprisingly accurately here, almost as if random chance has been greatly reduced, which it is in this place. And just for anything that's kind of apparently how this thing is working, this is a new concept to me, but I just read the papers on how much it's correlating with people's rise and fall, successes, death, and birth rate. It actually is holding water in this place. Anything that's apparently snaky or snake energy or anything like that, this is a very bad year to do that. The year of the pig right here. And I know how crazy that must sound, but I looked into this paper of how many people who are like year of the snake and they all die or lose their businesses in year of the pig, or year of the pig and they all die and lose their businesses in year of the snake. And it's like too many people in too many years for it to just be completely by accident. And I didn't want to believe it because I'm not really into that kind of stuff. But when I see a big pile of evidence like that, I just felt I had to say something in case people were like, oh, I'm going to start, doing snake stuff. I'm like, maybe this isn't the year. Just a small warning, not coming
Mm-hmm.
from an expert, just coming from a sideline observer person over here, just to keep our people here safe, because we love everyone that comes to watch this show. We want you to be safe and we want you to be happy.
All right, with that, we're signing off and we'll see you next week. And it's only been a week, so who knows what we'll have for you by next week. And until then, we'll be on Twitter and I probably will try to do something. I'll be tomorrow on Truth Frequency Radio at 5 o'clock Eastern. Obviously, this will be the topic du jour there. It's truthfrequencyradio.com, 5 o'clock. And I do a show called The Lizard Ritual. And come on by and listen to me. All right, guys, see you till next week.
See you, everybody.